Today, you may be feeling the mental health impact of this year's election. Politics really brings stress and worry, and there are all kinds of feelings to overcome. A psychologist says some signs of stress include trouble sleeping, loss of appetite, and excessive worry.
All of these things indicate that your emotional system may be on overdrive.
Okay, and joining us now to talk about stress, Dr. Payal Kohli, our medical expert, and just talking about the common problems in some of our lives. But there are a lot of stressors out there, and that can be more than just an election and politics and things you don't like to talk about with certain people, but the pandemic, inflation, I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, we've been living at a level up here. But what's interesting is if we actually look at the data from the last couple of years, and 2020 was a classic year because that's when we had the shutdown in April. We had the election in November, and our stress around the election was actually significantly higher than it was even around the shutdown, and that was adjusted for the fact that we were in a pandemic, and this was our self-reported anxiety and depression, the number of prescriptions we were seeking, and the number of doctor's visits that we did. So even now in 2022, in the midterm elections, 2/3 of Americans are saying that they feel like the election is one of the biggest stressors in their life right now, and they're worried about the future of the country.
Well, our ceiling only goes so high, and the floor has definitely risen as far as the baseline, where we start out every day now, whether it's just cell phones telling us what to do or what not to do all day long, and all the other stuff that's added in there. So are there ways to manage this? I mean, is it like turning off your phone every now and then might be a good idea?
Very much so. But we have to manage it. We have to acknowledge and manage it, because the point that you just made is that we live in a whole different environment than our ancestors did when our coping mechanisms evolved. So we have to do active things to manage it. So the first thing, unplug. Unplug for a few minutes or a few hours every day, especially around this time. And that includes television, social media, even talking to your friends. You know, make your vote count, so that you actually go and cast a vote. You don't just worry about the outcomes of the elections, but you cast your vote. And then really create a community around you so that no matter what the outcome, you don't catastrophize it, because that's one of the ways in which we amplify that election stress in our own heads by saying it's going to be the worst thing ever if this happens or if this doesn't happen.
So are there specific groups that have bigger problems? I mean, first of all, if you're in an election, if you are involved in a campaign, that is a hard job no matter what. So hats off to anybody when they finish off tonight. But are there certain groups that are really prone to this?
Yes, there are. And so all of us get some degree of election stress. But in fact, self-identified Democrats have a substantially higher rate of election stress than the Republicans.
Currently. Or
this is based on the results of the earlier elections.
Okay.
So we don't know
So it
for
might
this
change.
particular election, and I think some of it is dependent on who ends up winning and which party affiliate with and all that. But historically, that's what we've seen. But minority groups, for sure. So if you're a Black, a Hispanic, or even an Asian minority compared to non-Hispanic whites, have substantially higher rates. And then sexual minority groups, so the LGBTQ community. And I think some of that is that they worry about the outcomes a little bit more. And some of that is actually the outcome actually does impact them
Directly.
a little bit more.
Yeah. In so many
well, we
cases.
will have a very interesting night. Hopefully people can dial it down a little bit once Election Day has passed us. It's great to see you as always. Dr. Payal Kohli, thanks.